Good morning, Bitcoiners. I hope you're doing well. I'm loving my life. Who could complain on a day like today? Not me. No way. I can't do it. Can't happen. Please let me know, everyone, how the audio is coming through. I adjusted some settings yesterday because of the quietness that seems to happen when I'm doing the Zoom connection to Hank's show. So I adjusted some settings. Don't know how it'll affect you guys, but please let me know how I'm coming through, because you don't want to be sitting here on one of the greatest shows we're ever going to do and have bad audio, right? You want to make sure the audio is great. Let me make sure everything there is good. Sounds great. Great audio. Great. Thank you for that, C. Berger, JJ Fox. Indeed, folks saying from Chef Zero, who's first in the house today. The Spirit and the Bride, come, and let him who hears say, come. Whoever is thirsty, let him come. And whoever wishes, let him take the free gift of the water of life. Revelation 22:17. Indeed. Noah Simpson says it's starting. Happy Friday. Chef Zero again, drink from the river of life. Enjoy this precious gift of today, Bampians. Chef Zero, amen. Morning, y'all. Morning, Charlosky. Don't know why my voice is cracking. Cup overfloweth. Good morning to the awakened crew. Lance 2002 says, looking forward to today's show. You're going to love it. Good morning, Great Awakeners. The Spirit of God is alive in this chat. Happy Friday indeed. Block 937,544 with U.S. trash tokens coming in at 66,900 per Bitcoin. Incredible. Jesus is King says, happy Friday and God bless. C. Berger, good morning, folks. A week full of Epstein disclosures and alien invasions. We will survive. For all you conspiracy freaks, Whitney Webb has a fresh interview on Redacted News. She's always an interesting take indeed, JJ Fox. Jake2K, good morning, Nolan and Great Awakening crew, and happy Friday indeed. I was reminded yesterday of the public fall and crash out of Mel Gibson, Charlosky says. Seems he wasn't so crazy after all. No, he wasn't. And I believe he'll be getting his... sequel to Passion of the Christ out. That's pretty interesting. Countdown to Countism. 3, 2, 1, showtime. Nolan Rocks, LFG. Sounds great. Great audio. Loud and clear. Excellent. Clearly better. Rich, deep tones. We love it. Citadel Daniel recommended orange spice and definitely getting lemongrass again. Just need one more Soap Miner soap. Space Drop for 10% off. Indeed. Good morning from Texas. Good morning. And Chatelet, barely 45. Loud and clear. I'm Double B and Kevin Opar in the house. Indeed. We're filling up in here. We love it. Having a good time. I still have to figure out how to get these beautiful comments from the folks in Rumble back on the screen. We love it. Whitney Webb must be dancing in her predictions. Give it a listen, indeed. So there we go, everyone. Like you've all heard, we've got operational sunrise technology, right? The sunrise is happening. We're doing great. We've got Bitcoin also operational. Who could complain? We're doing great. Let's have a coffee and talk about what's new. Now, I do have to say, today is going to be slightly shorter than normal. I'm going to have to cut out 30 minutes to 45 minutes early. I think I warned you yesterday. I have to go give a talk here in Barbados, but I'll be back right after. I'm going to go. The talk I give is not far from where I am, and I'll be back in no time in order to do the Canadian show, I think. I know I rug pulled you guys last week. We had a last-minute cancellation, and it couldn't happen. But I believe we're good to go this week, so I'll let you know more about that. If I find out anything between now and the end of the show, I'll let you know if there's no show. But right now, you can expect a Canadian show. There's just too much going on in Canada to not talk about it with my beautiful co-hosts, Dave Bradley and Bradley Mills. So there you go. Let you know about all of that. Now, let's get into it. One more sip of coffee, and then I'll be sharing some NPC news. See how the NPCs are doing today. Not great. It's not going great. It's not going great. Here we go. All right. The first one is very funny. We had the, remember the white supremacy Elon article the other day that he likes white people and he thinks they're supreme, but he also might be a white supreme guy. This one's also Really funny from Forbes. X's algorithm. It's the algorithm's fault, guys. It's not because people are sick of wasteful spending. It's not because of fraud. It's not because of lying. It's not because of being aligned with a pedal bike Satanist cult. No, it's the algorithm that's causing people to be more conservative. Study suggests. That's fucking studies. Oh no, that's a stupid algorithm again. It's out there doing all these crazy things. What a crazy algorithm we got. We got this too, guys. Here's a new one on the Trump climate rollback. Trump climate health rollback likely to hit poor minority areas hardest. Experts say, oh no, Trump is going to hit the poor minority areas, experts say. Oh no, what a bummer. We get this from the Washington Post. Elizabeth Bruning's account of a mother's experience learning her child will die of measles has remained one of the Atlantic's most read stories since it was published. But some say the story felt misleading once they learned it was reported fiction. You mean this whole big long story written in the first person about a firsthand experience having your kid die and because they didn't have the shot was all fake? And people felt misled at the end of that? The Atlantic's essay about measles was gut-wrenching? But it was a lie. There you go. That's what's going on. So that's what we get from the Washington Post. We have this from Canada. This is really great. I told you yesterday about Canada's new military. Immigration programs' new focus on military recruits. So immigration programs' new focus on military recruits unlikely to solve shortages, experts say. You mean there aren't a bunch of professional soldiers dying to fight for Canada against its coming conflict against the United States? What? I thought they'd all be lining up for this job. Doesn't that sound like a great job? Just go fight the most powerful army in the history of planet Earth to defend Canada? What do you mean that wasn't a popular option? I don't understand. Here's what the Canadians are actually saying right now, in case you're wondering about pending conflict between Canada and the United States. So just so you know, this Globe and Mail that you're looking at now is so it's the largest national paper. The largest paper in Canada is the Toronto Star, but it's a local paper. So it's the second largest newspaper in Canada, but the largest newspaper that's a national paper. It's called the Globe and Mail. This is the other story they're running today vis-a-vis military, Trump, and Canada. What do you do when you're living next door to a fascist state? It's a real article in the Canadian newspaper for real. So what do you do? What do you do? I know. You play them in hockey and you lose. So indeed, yesterday, the Canadians played against the United States in the gold medal game for women's hockey. And weirdly, the entire Italian crowd was cheering for the Americans. And here's what we get from a Reddit post. Our ladies gave it their all, and I'm so proud of them. It just goes to show how much damage Donald J. Trump has done to everything the U.S. is involved in. When the crowd started chanting USA during the medal presentation ceremony, I had to turn off the volume. Of course, it's Trump's fault, and he's hoodwinked all these Italians into being into fascism again. It's the Mussolini angle, right? So that's what's going on here. The Italians are all excited about fascism returning. So it must be what it is. It must be that, right? Clearly. Because everybody knows what you do with a fascist country is you just play them in hockey, and then you shake hands after the game, and everybody goes home, and in this case, the Americans celebrate, and but of course the crowd, Donald J. Trump did that to them. So that's what's going on in Canada as of now. But we can actually spin this as well into the... so speaking of fascist states, right? Speaking of fascist states, we can continue with some fascist state rhetoric. That's the end of our NPC news. This is normie news. Here's the Prime Minister of Canada yesterday talking about the lawful access to bypass encryption to snoop on your private messages under the guise of safety and fighting crime. So here you have Mark Carney yesterday. So state-sanctioned spying. That's what he has to offer. And don't forget, right, we'll probably see more of this fella in the show today. But while we're on the subject of fascism and what's going on, and hold on, I got to get another one up here. It's my last one. Don't forget that we also have this note here from Carney. So close this again. Prince Andrew and Mark Carney, of course, were close friends. Andrew threw a birthday party for Mark, and Canada's legacy media is corrupt, and they refused to touch Carney, instead lying to Canadians and attacking all opposition. Demand answers. Carney's named 69 times. 69? What? 69 times in the Epstein files. And his buddy who threw him the birthday party was in the slammer yesterday. He was arrested. We'll talk a little bit more about that. So indeed, the state-sponsored lawful access. What do you do indeed when you live next to a fascist country? Nobody knows. No one knows. We also found out that, because Carney never even really ran when the mandate he was given was a minority government, right? So what he's been doing since is bribing people to cross the floor. And the funniest part of it is yesterday he met with the person whom he bribed. So he's going to get his majority government, even though he was not given an elected mandate to do that. He was in Edmonton to meet with this new MP who crossed the floor. And they're at the airport, and real Kian Bext says, "It is so funny to me that they both flew into Edmonton for this and literally didn't leave the airport because neither of them are actually from Edmonton." So, nothing says democracy like two carpetbaggers meeting in a place they're not even connected to, but who ostensibly they represent. So, of course, Mark Carney is a U.S. resident. His kids all live in the United States. Don't forget, though, it's fascist. Of course, that's why he sent his kids to go to school there, right? Why would he, they got to learn firsthand, right? Know thy enemy. So there you go. That's what's going on in Canada. It gets even better, though. Last night, the Premier of Alberta made a appeal to the people of Alberta. She came out with a press conference, and I will share that with you right now. And indeed, here it is. And I'm not sure you're going to get the audio here, but I do want to talk about it. So Alberta taxpayers. So she came out and announced there'll be a referendum on October 19th, 2026. And it is not a referendum yet on separation of Alberta from Canada, but it is a referendum on renegotiating the transfer payments, renegotiating parts of the Constitution, and limiting any form of immigration and having their own particular control over immigration. So she says here, Alberta taxpayers can no longer be asked to continue to subsidize the entire country. Premier Smith announces provincial referendum on October 19th, 2026 to make significant changes to put an end to mass immigration and as well on the end of what we call equalization payments, which will have to go through some form of constitutional renegotiation. So they'll get a referendum on that, but that does not preclude the referendum for separation being attached to it. So that could very well happen. Here we see breaking. Danielle Smith announces the October 19th, 2026 provincial referendum on immigration and constitutional reform. If Stay Free Alberta secures enough signatures, the same date could also see an independence question on the ballot. Should it be asked alongside the others or in its own vote? Thoughts are being asked, but I do believe they're going to get their way. I do believe they're going to get their referendum. Let me see if the audio plays on
Alberta taxpayers, but also financially crippling and undercuts the quality of our healthcare, education, and other social services. The October 19th referendum will therefore include the following questions. Number one, do you support the government of Alberta taking increased control over immigration for the purpose of decreasing immigration to more sustainable levels, prioritizing economic migration, and ensuring Albertans have first priority to new employment opportunities? Number 2, do you support the government of Alberta introducing a law mandating only Canadian citizens, permanent residents, and individuals with an Alberta-approved immigration status will be eligible for provincially funded programs, such as health, education, and other social services? Number 3, assuming that all citizens and permanent residents continue to qualify for social support programs as they...
So it's really just a renegotiation with the federal government, but of course, that's how Quebec always approached its referendums, referendi, I guess you could say. They always begin with a discussion about constitutional renegotiation, and then whenever that blows up, because it's almost impossible to do, just like the United States, constitutional reform in Canada is really tough, and deliberately so, right? It was not created to be a quick revision that can be done by local representatives. It has to be filtered through both the state level and the federal level with super majorities and this and that and all kinds of stuff. So not that simple. So it looks like it's going to happen, but of course you have a lot of discussion online with all the trouble in Canada. I think yesterday was day 3 of viral conversations, particularly by Matt Walsh, talking about overthrowing Canada and invading Canada, and that it makes the most sense because of the Chinese ties and all the other things that are going on. Of course, I don't think you need to do anything like that. You can simply just attack them financially. I've believed for a long time that a economic war could break out in terms of Americans offering status in the United States to Canadians in order to deplete further the brain drain that's already happening in Canada. The brain drain in Canada is absolutely massive, by the way. I saw yesterday there was a really funny conversation where someone in Canada on X was trying to virtue signal, Canada is strongest when people come from other places and make us even stronger. And NVK, a great Bitcoiner who I've already mentioned today, jumped in and said, all the best and brightest have left. So what are you talking about? You've driven them out. But now this conversation, of course, between Canada and the United States continues to have momentum. Here's Fisher King talking about the same thing. And here's sort of the linchpin of the argument. This is the U.S. oil reserve map in Canada and the United States. And Fisher King says, okay, we should invade Alberta. And of course, the oil fields here almost perfectly align with the map because that's the Rocky Mountains you see in this part here. And all of this northern stuff above the border as well, mostly unexplored, but most people expect there to be tons of oil there. It just no one goes. And I do believe that if you dissolve Canada as a legal entity, those territories, Yukon and Northwest Territory in particular, not Nunavut. Nunavut is self-determining. But the other 2 territories are legal constructs, and I believe completely fall apart if there is no more Ottawa. So I know people are upset about how the map might look with the United States and then the weird Alberta popping out of it. But I believe because the other territories will become dissolved in terms of what's going on there, legal title to it, or any of this international law stuff not applying, I do believe you can see right away that America will get its land bridge to Alaska if this goes the way I think it will go. So there you go. But it gets even better, right? It gets even better. Here's the negotiations. Apparently, the United States is now going to renegotiate a North American free trade deal without Canada. So Canada going to be left out. And here, indeed, people talking about it, only about half of Canadians think it would be a bad thing if CUSMA, that's otherwise known as NAFTA, came to an end. Think about what that means. Tracy Wilson says, we're cooked. This is a classic tragic example of biting one's nose off to spite their own face. People have no idea how devastating this would be for our economy, and that's probably why it's going in that direction. Now, anything about these military incursions, it gets kind of funny because, indeed, like I said here, the foreigners probably aren't going to be a solution to the immigration problem. The recruitment problem probably lies with the actual weakness of the Canadian military, especially when it's provoking the United States. Until very recently, the U.S. military was facing the same recruiting crisis. America solved that by getting Trump elected, who put Hegseth in charge, and nuked DEI, which sent a signal that the bad old days were over and the U.S. military was back in the business of killing people. The Canadian Armed Forces, meanwhile, is commanded by H.R. Karen, who broke into tears at racism apology ceremony, forced the men's room to stock tampons, and presided over a change in dress standards that allowed gender goblins to disgrace the uniform with pink hair. It's very obvious how the recruiting crisis can be fixed, but the Liberal Party is not ideologically capable of fixing it, hence the mercenaries, but that really won't work either. Now, strangely, the Europeans are also going for this new military. They want the brand new military too. So here they are. Migration can provide the manpower for European defense. Roman helmet guy reminding us, sure, inviting in foreigners to defend them didn't work for the Romans with the Goths or Britons with the Saxons, or the Abbasids with the Turks, or the Ayyubids with the Mumeluks, or the Southern Italians with the Normans, or Polish with the Teutonic Knights. But it might work for us. Let's go. Come on, Europe. You can do it. Go for it. Hire the mercenaries. We'll see how that goes, indeed. And they might need it because it turns out NATO looks pretty much done. Why is NATO done all of a sudden, you ask? Well, I'll tell you. Let me get the notes up for this. I had them slightly out of order. But yeah, all right. Well, here we see from apparently, this is news coming in sort of from all over, the UK has blocked the United States from using their air bases. This is in particular the one out by Mauritius. And so this one out by Mauritius was supposed to be used as the Chagos Islands as part of the staging on Iran. Whatever's going on with that, we'll see. But here, just another pod guy says, and then people want to know why the admin wants to own Greenland outright. Now, you can see here that the UK blocking Trump and the United States from using their bases is more or less the end of NATO, right? This is not supposed to happen in NATO. You're not supposed to be able to do this. And by doing this, you're actually completely dissolving the entity, and lots of people talking about that. Here's the Spectator Index on the same story. The United Kingdom government is blocking Trump from using its bases to strike Iran, according to a report from the Times. Mike Code says, we hear a lot about how the U.S. is destroying the Western alliance structure, but how does this fit into the mold? America has a legitimate lease on the base, and this is a legitimate military use of said base. If we're giving every ally a veto over our security, that's untenable. And indeed, I think that the whole end of NATO is now in sight. We had other developments today that I think, or yesterday that I think also portend this. Labrador skeptic saying here, the world is changing very, very fast. And this is a major development. Our close ally, the UK, just denied the US the use of its bases for a potential Iran conflict. And Bulgaria just said, you know what? We're going with the Americans on this and not the EU. Hungary would likely say the same, and possibly Poland as well. The EU thinks it is moving as a whole to the United States, but Central and Eastern Europe may disagree, as they should, which would fracture the EU. Crazy, crazy days. To be sure, I'm still very much opposed to the U.S. attacking Iran. That said, the very possibility is sorting out who our friends are in the fast-changing world. As it happens, Bulgaria passes and the UK does not. U.S. policy going forward should reflect this. By the way, Bulgaria used to be one of the most powerful empires in Europe. They held off the Turks for centuries until they didn't. Let's have some respect here for our friends, indeed. Also at the same time, like Europe and these institutions, and Trump is breaking down the order, right? And, Trump is a fascist. And what about Trump and the Federal Reserve's independence? Remember everyone throwing hissy fits about whether or not Jerome Powell is going to be subject to the federal government. Oh, my God. What is hilarious about the Lagarde story with the EU is that it's completely political, and it's completely about politicizing their central bank. So here, of course, we talked about it yesterday, the Lagarde story. The president of the European Central Bank, Lagarde, is expected to resign before the end of her 8-year term. And of course, here it's the same story. Trump and the norms. They kicked America out of NATO with this base. And now here, same thing. The crazy part about this is that they're resigning early to make sure Macron and Merz still have a say in appointing the next ECB president before a massive right-wing wave swoops across Germany and France. No respect for democracy. That's exactly what's going on. And also why you start to see, here's Macron yesterday telling on himself. Now, this is a story related to a young man, Quentin Duranc, who in Lyon was protesting Antifa, and they killed him. They booted him in the head and they mobbed him and all that stuff. And so we had Maloney in Italy describe it as the death as a wound for the whole of Europe. Macron decided that it was better to say that everyone should mind their own business and will be just fine. But there's some part here where he really does tell on himself. So he says the following. Watch the words here, and I'll pause them when I get to them. So they want to comment on what is happening. Nationalists always want to comment on what is happening, right? He says then they should stay home. If everyone stays at home, and the sheep will be safe. So he called everyone that lives in Europe that want to protest against Antifa or against government excess or any of this stuff. He literally just called them the sheep should just stay home. The sheep should just stay home, is what the president of France, Macron, said publicly. And people picking up that they're not looking very confident. Trust Lion says all of the major European political figures have been sounding increasingly nervous lately. And I think we're all witnessing that. It becomes very obvious when you look at this kind of deranged stuff that's coming up, that indeed you're seeing the either birth pangs of a new freedom or the death throes of the old system collapsing. Here he is sounding a lot like Mark Carney. All of these countries are trying to do this whole thing yesterday as well that we heard from Patrick Byrne, or Preston Byrne, pardon me, the free speech lawyer and Bitcoiner who is representing 4chan and Gab and all these other folks. And he's the one who said yesterday they've given up on moderation and the misinformation argument. They're moving directly into doxing everyone in order that they can arrest everyone. They're still trying to use this whole save the children in order to dox everyone, right? So you're seeing it across the spectrum. Again, Macron said it again yesterday. He was in India. Macron urges India to join European countries on a social media ban for teenagers and states. Platforms, governments, and regulators should work together to make the internet and social media a safe space. Protecting our children is not regulation, it's civilization, he says. Sounds good on the surface, right? Autism Capital says. But to protect our children is a magic incantation that allows them to move moral cover for the real objective, which is total and complete control of the information flow of the internet and censorship of any voices they deem problematic. Remember, we've already seen in the Epstein files that all of this was to manage the fallout of the internet. That was exact words in the Epstein files. We talked about it yesterday. Here's the Australian sludge person. I guess he's the puffy, seed oil filled loser from Australia, Anthony Albanese, saying the same thing. Here he says, the Prime Minister of Australia says he loves public schools because the kids aren't far right yet. He's intentionally admitting the public schools are already shaping kids towards left-leaning views. Indoctrination starts early, and he's got that social media ban going already. They were the original ones to do it. Now, Labrador Skeptic comes in again on our notes today, and he says a lot of right-wing Europeans and Canadians have been feeling hurt by the abrupt pivot by the U.S. away from their governments. Question. Could the U.S. government know more about your governments and their plans than you do? The curtain may be falling on freedom much faster than the public knows. He says here, the dark descent of Canada is accelerating. The new official policy of the government is to bring in foreigners for their remilitarization. As with yesterday's post on New Zealand, we now know that the primary military purpose will be the domestic control of the right wing and Christians. Laboratory Skeptic goes on. All the major Western powers have been moving in sync for quite some time. Mass immigration for population replacement, DEI, LGBTQ+, etc. Then the U.S. alone broke away under Trump, and the rest of the governments are going down a particular path without the U.S. They are continuing the immigration, no way to vote a way out. They're concentrating on information control, trying to suppress free speech on the internet. And they're openly pursuing remilitarization while running exercises on suppressing the right. and bringing in foreign soldiers. How close are they to turning the lights out on freedom altogether? What are the specifics of the coordinated plan? We, the public, don't know. But if there is a plan, the suddenly dissident US government would know exactly what it is, which would explain many things. And I don't think you need to hallucinate that into reality. That looks exactly what it like what's going on. Now, speaking of risks and what's going on in this whole European theater, we finally got the truth from the Nord Stream pipeline. Remember, Russia blew it up? Oh. So, of course, we've all known here for a long time, and it was obvious for many months or years now that it never made sense. Now, in the news, finally, we see a Ukrainian secret commando blew up the Nord Stream pipelines in 2022. Der Spiegel investigations reveal, my goodness, are you kidding me? Everyone knew this for 4 years now, and they're just catching up. U.S. agents are said to have discussed the attack plans with the saboteurs before later opposing them. Glenn Deason says, so the U.S. knew that Ukraine would destroy the Nord Stream 3 months before the attack happened. So why did our politicians and their stenographers in the media insist that Russia was behind the attack? Why did NATO use the attack to justify militarizing the Baltic Sea and escalating the proxy war in Ukraine? Is this an admission that our governments are dishonest warmongers manipulating their own public? Also, it seems highly unlikely that the U.S. did not participate in this attack and were unable to prevent it. Indeed, I think we have seen that this was the case for a long time. We have no adjustments needed. Now, just like we heard earlier about European countries deciding which side of this Euro, Canada, British conflict they're on versus the United States, Hungary here yesterday, when this was admitted in the European Union Parliament, had a lot to say. This is Balaz, I don't know how to pronounce his name, Orban, I guess related to Viktor Orban, maybe, says, outrageous. The European Commission openly admits it will not pressure Ukraine to restore an oral. Oh, so they're trying to say now that they should pay for it because they did it, right? And Europe has lost an absolute fortune buying Russian oil from the Indians with huge markups that come around with the sanctions, instead of having just a pipeline and no transport costs. Don't forget the Germans, the only impressive thing they've done in the past 4 years is actually create the capacity to buy American LNG at the scales they did. They built their facilities to do that, to replace this in record time. But it cost them a lot of money, and they already have the infrastructure there. So here, the European Commission openly admits it will not pressure Ukraine to restore an oil pipeline supplying an EU member state. That says everything about Brussels' Kiev alignment and double standards against Ukraine's patriotic government. Hungary's energy security is a core national interest, and we will defend it. And you had Viktor Orban yesterday saying much the same thing. He said the following: Ukraine is trying to ensure that the Russian energy reaches Europe only on its terms. Nord Stream bypassed Ukraine, so it was destroyed. Now they are blocking the fully operational Friendship oil pipeline. This is political blackmail and a violation of the EU-Ukraine Association Agreement, which prohibits actions that endanger the energy security of EU member states. Hungary's energy supply will not be held hostage, indeed. So I don't know what's going on with the Hungarian elections in 2 months, but I'm just going to say they're going to try and steal it. But I do believe Trump is going to get maximum help. And I do believe this energy piece does actually matter big time in the domestic politics of Hungary. I don't think brainwashing is strong enough to get people to pay more for gas. Hungary, in America, in Canada, and many places. I just don't think they're going to be able to do it. So there you go. And I do believe you're going to see Trump help out over there, as he said he's going to do. Here was Orban yesterday. The Board of Peace began. So all this war talk, all these people that are clearly lying, going on all these war fronts in Ukraine and Russia. Meanwhile, Trump yesterday spent the day, while they're all having to divulge the truth about the pipeline and everything that has happened in Russia since all of the Biden administration trouble that began there. The Board of Peace met for the first time yesterday, and there's Milei and Orban rocking out, having a good time. And here Hassan Sajwani saying, when the teacher allows me to sit with my best friend at the back of the the classroom, people having great vibes, a lot of people picking up on the great vibes yesterday. Here, Whale psychiatrist says President Trump has a bunch of countries that spent decades fighting and killing each other, shaking hands and being friends at the Board of Peace event. Just remarkable. And indeed, there's other videos of people just looking up at the president yesterday and saying, just giving them all their attention, and a lot of people picking up on how many of these leaders respect him and follow his lead. And indeed, his lead on a lot of this stuff is one of the most important things because, of course, when you see all of this transpire, when you see the Board of Peace simultaneous to the trouble that Europe is getting in with the Russian story and the energy and the oil, you start to see that, of course, Trump has a plan, and Trump isn't just behaving in a miscellaneous, random way. And of course, we talked yesterday about the South Korean president who crossed the Rubicon and didn't have a plan. And Christian Hines again says, have you ever heard the tragedy of President Yoon Suk Yeol? I thought not. It's not a story the liberals would tell you. It's a Schmittian legend. Yoon was a lawyer who rose to fame prosecuting presidents, then fell out of favor with the left when he began investigating their own. He had such a knowledge of the left's corruption, and after he became president, Democrats in the National Assembly intentionally paralyzed the entire country just to stop him. So he came to believe that if the system would be weaponized, it could also be overturned. He actually tried to crush the libs and not just own them online. The state exception is a pathway to many measures, some considered to be unconstitutional. He became so certain the country was slipping away. The only thing he feared was inaction, which eventually, of course, destroyed him. Unfortunately, he crossed the Rubicon without a plan, backed down immediately, and then the very institutions he sought to overturn impeached him and sent him to prison. Ironic. He exposed just how fragile the constitutional order truly is, and then trusted the same order to protect him. Is it possible to actually wield this power? Not as a conservative. But let's remember, Trump isn't a conservative. He's been running a psychological operation for many years. He has a plan. It's been called Trust the Plan many times. And yesterday, I think, was one of those days when you saw Prince Andrew arrested, that you can see the plan actually coming to fruition. And Walter Kern here admits what you've been hearing from me for over, at least openly, since the fake kayfabe Trump Elon fight began last May. Walter Kern says here, the administration's success in whipping the Democrat opposition and normie Republicans into an epic Epstein frenzy after they dismissed the whole thing for years as QAnon kookery was the most masterful persuasion operation I've ever seen. Scott Adams grins down from heaven. Dang. Told you so. Told you so. And it is now, I think, 100% certain that this is the case. And I might be the first person who said this out loud back in May. I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure, pretty close to it. And indeed, the whole plan, always with this kayfabe thing, is to control the flow of information as it comes out. And of course, people can say, he should have done it sooner. People have been complaining for months. Why not the arrests? And I said the whole time, you can always complain why not sooner or your own timeline. And Walter Kern follows that up with his discussion about the timeline. He says, enough with the distraction, and it's all a cover-up business, my lord. It may sound sophisticated, but it's not. It's repetitive and imitative. We are learning and will learn more in a short time about how our world really works than few could have imagined. The powerful are panicking, resigning, and being arrested. Princes, billionaires, scientists, but nothing will happen. But Trump, you think this was easy getting to this point? You think you could have done it better? No, this is not easy. And getting people to ask for this was always the plan. It was always the plan from the very beginning. In fact, it's even expressed how Trump has to seem above all of it because he can't get involved in all of the day-to-day. That's why I've recruited Tom Cruise to kill these people. That's why I did it. Right? It came from that idea. The president can do it. It's why I talked about RFK being the attorney general. It's why I talked about having someone in charge of this that can take the day-to-day conversations about the space drops that are coming. They're coming. Space drops are literally coming. And so when you see the arrest of Prince Andrew, it's getting even better, of course. Now we see Bill Gates is unwilling to go into public. He canceled his keynote speech. He was supposed to be there with Macron and everyone yesterday. But of course, the Epstein stuff has kept him out of the news. Not going to be able to hide in India, not going to be able to hide any longer. Eric Spracklin says he just watched Prince Andrew get arrested and realized he might not be untouchable. Indeed, it looks like this is happening. Here's the hilarious picture of Prince Andrew yesterday coming out of the police station. Not looking so good there, Prince. You don't have the other time I saw him look this creepy was when he was on top of those girls in those pictures. And so this is the reverse angle, him on the bottom. So it's good to see it like that, an important inversion. Now, speaking of Scott Adams and persuasion, one of the craziest simulation winks I've seen in a long time, again, going back to the kayfabe argument, and I'm going to play audio on this one. Going back to the kayfabe argument and just watch the simulation wink here for a second. So I'm going to start with a video in the 2020 election. And this was a very famous one. Trump did a town hall with NBC News. And you had Savannah Guthrie. Now, she's in the news because her mom has been kidnapped. And here she is trying to question Trump on the satanic pedal bike cult being run by the deep state. And here she says, remember when Savannah Guthrie asked President Trump to disavow theories about this deep state satanic pedal bike cult?
Let me ask you about QAnon. It is this theory that Democrats are a satanic pedophile ring and that you are the savior of that. Now, can you just once and for all state that that is completely not true and that disavow QAnon in its entirety?
I know nothing about QAnon.
I just told you.
I know very little. You told me, but what you tell me doesn't necessarily make it fact. I hate to say that. I know nothing about it. I do know they are very much against pedophilia. They fight it very hard, but I know nothing about it.
They believe it is a satanic cult run by the deep
state. The subject. I'll tell you what I do know about. I know about Antifa, and I know about the radical left, and I know how violent they are and how vicious they are, and I know how they're burning down cities run by Democrats, not run by Republicans.
Republican Senator Ben Sass said, quote, QAnon is nuts, and real leaders call conspiracy theories conspiracy theories. Why not just say it's crazy and not true?
He may be right. I just don't know about QAnon.
You do know.
I don't know. No, I don't know. I don't know.
Let me ask you another thing.
Let's waste a whole show. You start off with white supremacy. I denounce it. You start off with something else. Let's go. Keep asking me these questions.
I do have one more in this vein.
Let me just tell you, what I do hear about it is they are very strongly against pedophilia. And I agree with that. I mean, I do agree with that, and I agree with it.
But there's not a satanic pedophile cult they run by.
I know nothing
You don't
about
know that? Okay.
No, I don't know
you
that.
Just this
neither
week.
do you know that.
Okay.
Too good. Now here's the simulation wink. I remember I told you there's a particular, I don't know if you want to call it Scott Adams connection here, because Scott was always picking up on these simulation winks. And so here's Savannah Guthrie, right, asking about this deep state plot and Trump denying it in the way that he did. Now, here's a recent interview with her again, and I'll make sure we have her face up front. Now, what I think is just incredible about this is that she interviewed Virginia Guthrie. Virginia Guthrie, Savannah Guthrie. And here's her, Guthrie, interviewing Guthrie. Now, Guthrie, of course, died not long after this interview. And now the interviewer's mother has been kidnapped and is still being held ransom. What? What's going on? Look at this.
I was so young. Keelan woke me up in the morning and said, "You're going to meet a prince today." I didn't know at that point that I was going to be trafficked to that prince. And then that night, Prince Andrew came to her house in London, and we went out to Club Tramp. Prince Andrew got me alcohol. It was in the VIP section. I'm pretty sure it was vodka. Prince Andrew was like, let's dance together. And I was like, okay. And we leave Club Tramp. And I hop in the car with Ghislaine and Jeffrey. And Ghislaine said he's coming back to the house. And I want you to do for him what you do for Epstein. I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that even royalty were involved. I was so young. Ghislaine woke me.
So there you go. Virginia Giuffre said traffic to Prince Andrew. Later, she was hit by a bus and died by suicide. After saying, I'm not suicidal. Oh, and the interview's mother was kidnapped and is still being held for ransom. I mean, what are you supposed to say? It's all a coincidence, I guess, right? What a weird coincidence. So, simulation in the game here, letting us all know something's up. Guthrie. And now we also see this from the royals within the Epstein papers. Did you know the royals actually own the land on which Disney is built? Did you know that? And that Epstein says he has a special access to Disney. And here we see, remember when we learned that the land Disney is on in Florida was owned by the royals? Sensationally, the dossier states that the provisions will remain in place until 21 years after the death of the last survivor of the descendants of King Charles III, King of England, living as of the date of this declaration. The last survivor is currently the 1-year-old Princess Lilibet of Sussex, who resides in California. Those so-called royal clauses are used by lawyers to avoid rules against contracts which last in perpetuity. The British lawyers were selected because information about their family tree is readily available and because the family members generally have longer life expectancy, according to law firm Brickett's. What the hell is going on? So they had access to Disney. They own it. They own it. And you're wondering, the guy who took this lady out actually owns Disney. And more so, we found out in the files that Epstein was actually offered the chance to buy the Pentagon and the FBI buildings. Mike Ben's cyber saying, I don't know if this is true. This is Al Jazeera reporting, but Mike Ben says the situation is getting very dire for all of my doubters. Hey, can I buy that? Hey, is that the Pentagon? How much? How much for Disney? Can I buy the park? I don't want a ticket to. I just want to buy the park, okay? And then throw in the Pentagon. All right, no problem. Easy peasy. It's just real estate transactions, right? And we get this yesterday as well. Epstein's the guy Lex Wessner that people have been asking about for a while was interviewed on the relationship he had with Epstein, and he came out and said Epstein was a Rothschild agent since the 1980s. Les Wexner says Epstein claimed he was the financial advisor to Elie de Rothschild and the Rothschild family in France. And this interview did not go very well. He's very explicit here. Trump had nothing to do with any of it. Les Wexner also was told by his lawyer, stop answering the questions, I'll fucking kill you, he said, if you keep answering on hot mic. So lots happened in that interview yesterday, all predictable if you've been following the kayfabe argument through the years. And it gets even better, of course. We've seen just how close the Obama administration is now. It's Lisa Monaco involved. Lisa Monaco was Obama's Homeland Security advisor when this email was sent, and you'd think this would be bigger news. She said, Jeffrey Epstein says, I see Lisa is going to Silicon Valley. We can give her assistance for the smart and private, Musk, Hoffman, We'll see. A year ago, if you said the multiple Obama White House officials were going to Jeffrey Epstein for help securing the revolving door post-government sinecure jobs, people would call you crazy. But that's what happened. And indeed, more stuff on that as well. Here we find out from the lawyer who was working for Obama, the Goldman Sachs lawyer who's already had to quit Goldman Sachs, Svetlana Lakova, who was caught up in the Russia thing. Says here, nobody knows when Rumler's relationship with Epstein started. She says 2 weeks after she left the White House, but that's just too neat. She had been already sleeping with Epstein's personal lawyer and Eric Holder's best friend, Reed Weingarten, for years, according to a letter from Weingarten's wife. That's why Rumler was Obama's top lawyer at the White House. And after she left the White House, Rumler remained a close friend and trusted advisor to Obama, whilst constantly meeting with and emailing Epstein. So the connections are pretty obvious. Now, again, go to this world of declassification. Remember, that was always the narrative, right? That Trump controlled the information, had sprung a trap, and would be declassifying at his pace in order to move the narrative and more or less suck people into what is called the greatest show on earth in order to get people to actually look at this stuff. So exactly like we heard from Walter Kern, exactly like you heard from me, exactly like you've heard from now Scott Adams smiling down from heaven. And this next one, I think, goes in line with that. So you had the other day Obama in an interview say, yeah, aliens are real. And Trump yesterday took issue with that and said, wait a minute, he just came out with declassified information. He said he shouldn't have done that. I can declassify it and save him and get him out of trouble. And so yesterday he ended up doing that. Donald Trump said, based on a tremendous interest shown, I will be directing the Secretary of War and other relevant departments and agencies to begin the process of identifying and releasing government files related to alien and extraterrestrial life, unidentified aerial phenomena, and unidentified flying objects, and any and all other information connected to these highly complex but extremely interesting and important matters. God bless America. And Matthew Pines here says, I did not have disclosure via emoji from SecWar on my bingo card, aliens, and we're declassifying. So remember, the point is to control the declass and the scale. And you can hear from this, Trump is actually not putting hard timelines and begin the process and look into identifying, So nothing specific. The point was to draft behind here, I think, Obama's comments and, let Trump show a little magnanimity as well by saying, maybe I'll help old Obama out. Wink, wink. Now, Palmer Luckey has his theories, and I am sharing them here because I agree with Palmer Luckey. And I think this was also the Scott Adams take for many years. My current theory is they come from the past. You could imagine a world where Earth hosted advanced civilizations 1 billion years ago. If and when we figure out what's going on with UAPs, UFOs, that whole universe, everything is going to change. And indeed, I've been telling you for a long time that if you thought history was fake, news was fake, wait until you get a load of history. History is the fakest thing going. And we have no idea what happened because we just don't control any of in the same way that we've been living in a mirage for entertainment and a mirage for news. We live in a mirage of history, and it's completely not accurate. We're going to get to the bottom of it soon, though. That's what's going on. And indeed, here are people picking up on it, and we're on the brink of confirmation that aliens exist. It's probably a good excuse to take a look back in time. Here are 9 examples of what many believe to be UFOs and artwork produced centuries ago. The Madonna of San Giovanni, people say that's a UFO behind there. Many of them, the crucifixion, got some UFOs there. Here, Annunciation, you got something happen here. Here, more beam me up, Scotty stuff with the lights. It happens again and again and again. And through history, many people commenting on this, not the first time. What is it exactly? Don't know. But indeed, it looks like there is some spiritual element to this as well, which I also believe. Here's Rep Luna talking about much the same thing. This is when Rep Luna suggests that the interdimensional beings are linked to text removed from the Bible, such as the Book of Enoch, which describe advanced technologies provided to humanity by non-human entities. I have to be careful. I could get in trouble if I divulge what I've seen and shown in the skiff. What I can tell you is that they are real indeed, and it looks more and more like we're going to find out. Here's Roger Stone on the same subject saying, Nixon, after having a few cocktails in Miami with comedian Jackie Gleason, told the Great One that UFOs are real. Nixon took Gleason to a military facility in Homestead, Florida, where the government had proof of alien life. This story was related to me by Gleason's ex-wife, and that's from Roger Stone, who's been pretty close to a lot of this stuff, and I think a pretty fair and accurate guy so far. He could be wrong, but I don't think he's lying or misleading you. Speaking of that, right, here he is again talking about whatever it is that's hidden history from us, whatever it is that Epstein is suggesting exists. the empire above Epstein. Here, Nixon told me who killed JFK. Nixon called the Warren Commission the biggest goddamn hoax in American history. Lyndon and I both wanted to be president. The difference was I wasn't willing to kill for it. The president muttered to me over martinis at the Saddle River home. Nixon knew the CIA and the mob were both in on it. Indeed, there's a young Roger Stone looking handsome next to his favorite president before Donald Trump, Richard Nixon, president I love myself. Indeed, here he is mentioning exactly what that deep state is, whatever this empire is. Nixon told me the deep state was spying on him, and now unsealed grand jury records prove it. The Joint Chiefs opposed ending the Vietnam War, opposed a strategic arms limitation treaty with the Soviets, and opposed opening the door to China at a time when China was dirt poor, low-tech agrarian society that would only later become a superpower after President Clinton granted it most favored nation trading status, while actively spying on our 37th president and his national security staff. In other words, the same people who spied on Nixon spied on Trump indeed. And that is why Trump took a different way around this. That's why Trump chose the psychological warfare and didn't go for being right or facts or rhetoric. Nixon comes from a time when and was a lawyer, so thinking he can argue his way out of this was probably his big mistake. He needed to P.T. Barnum his way out of this, not lawyer his way. This was not a job for a lawyer. This was a job for a promoter. This was a job for an entertainer. This was a job for someone who could fight the deep state manipulation of media and its ability to create these theaters and these narratives. So now you can look at all this persuasion, right? Trump is doing this, and like you heard from Walter Kern, like I've been telling you, you're dealing with the most amazing persuasion job in the history of the world. This D-class that Trump is controlling, again, the 9/11 thing being omitted, it gets everyone excited again, but the point of it is to get people asking specifically about that. If you just flood the airwaves with all this stuff, it's just too much. But if you create breadcrumbs and you use it as a narrative and as a story, people will just continue to consume and get caught up in the story and then root for different archetypes and different people. So you can see Trump really as the master conductor here, I think, creating this scenario where he knows what next move is happening and is one step ahead of the game. So think of that persuasion, right? Think of what he's doing. And now compare, for example, we've been talking all week about Obama and Hillary Clinton coming back into the game to try to, some people say because they're panicking and Trump is winning so hard that they've got to come out and do this kind of re-architecture of the narrative and try and hijack it back. So Hillary put out her efforts. So remember, Trump is controlling UFO information, 9/11 information. He's running the Epstein files declassification at his pace. Probably knows for the next 6 months what the release schedule is right up until the midterms. And Hillary Clinton went for what? She went for an essay. She went for an essay, guys. She went for an essay. Here's her essay. I can say from personal experience that Putin is threatened by strong women. As I argue in a new piece in Foreign Affairs magazine. He and his fellow autocrats have reason to fear us. Here's the whole thing. Defending women's rights and combating authoritarianism. She wrote an essay, guys. There's an essay. There's an essay. Women's rights are democratic rights. The global authoritarian backlash to gender equality. Hillary Rodham Clinton, 2026, published February 17th. Here's what she's going with. Autocracies now outnumber democracies, and nearly 3/4 of the world's population lives under authoritarian rule. She says these developments can't be understood, let alone reversed, without grasping a crucial element at the heart of the authoritarian wave: the persecution of women. Go, Hillary. You got it. You got it. So obviously, Hillary is going to be arrested soon. This isn't going to work. It's a zero. It's a zero. Go for it, Hillary. We all want to hear about the women thing. And she's got one more here. Hungary, Turkey, and other fragile democracies tip further into illiberalism. Even in the United States, the rule of law weakened and the threat of authoritarianism surged. So you can bet that Trump is going to be participating in Hungary if this fucking crazy lady is out there. So that's what you got. Now, just compare, right? Trump has set himself up now. Just like I said, part of the narrative here is Trump removes himself from the conversation, right? Trump backs away and lets other things happen. And really, coming out of this whole Epstein thing, he's still Trump. His fans, I think, love him as much as they ever have. Compare, with Bill Clinton or Hillary Clinton, or like we just saw, you got Bill Gates can't go out into public anymore because of Epstein stuff. It's going to be the same for Obama soon. They're going to continue to declassify stuff, and it'll make its way there. But here's Trump yesterday in a burger stand after his speech. He gave a great speech yesterday, and he stops in a burger stand, and here's Trump doing what he does, orders burgers for the ride back to the White House aboard Air Force One at a Georgia restaurant, and indeed here, tanning salon Dawn says absolute master class compared to JD Vance. Keys: 1, don't single out an individual, point to all and see who responds. 2, ask questions where the answer is yes. Very simple sales tactic, makes it seem like people agree. 3, control the entire interaction. Trump can do this with his eyes closed all day, every day. He's just so capable at this stuff. And indeed, I continue to believe it's interactions like this that are going to completely change the electoral situation in the United States. I continue to predict that Trump will win the African American vote big time in the midterms. Here he is celebrating Black History Month yesterday. Black History Month, Black History Year, he says, right? Black History, everything. And indeed, Czar Apu says here, they hate to see a real nigga win. And here we see Trump is too nig to rig. Gold-plated everything with his name on it. Multiple baby mamas, didn't do nothing. That was raided by the FBI. Mugshot in the papers, 34 felonies, got shot, worked at McDonald's a day and quit. It's too good. Just too good. I think he's going to get it. Not because of any of this stuff. I just think it's the interactions that he has with people and, being right on policy and helping people make money are going to get him there. And of course, who doesn't want those things, right? And indeed, I think, again, the Talarisco story with the FCC, that's another way of seeing it. Here's the Talarisco story. I'll bring it back up. Hold on. Yeah, here it is. So the Talarisco story, I think, in the end goes in this direction, because here's Glenn Beck talking to Brendan Carr yesterday, and apparently Brendan Carr, the guy who they were trying to blame in the fake news for that story with Stephen Colbert, and says, I wake up Tuesday morning and logged into social media, and that was the first time I'd ever heard about this. And Cernovich says it was a fundraising hoax, needs to be investigated by the FCC, and if appropriate, criminal charges for conspiracy to commit fundraising fraud should be applied. What I think is even funnier, though, again, is because it's about giving equal time to other candidates, it's Jasmine Crockett who they fucked. It's Jasmine Crockett who they fucked. So I think Jasmine Crockett is not going to be like a Bernie Sanders. I think she's going to make them stink about this, because she's been screwed. They've screwed a black woman over for a white guy. And I do think she's going to do what Bernie Sanders never did. And I think she's going to start selling out the Democrats around this stuff. And you love to see it, indeed. And Cernovich also reminding us, because we have all of these narratives that are out there, and you can see, Hillary Clinton's trying to write an essay to save her life. Not going to work. And with the D-class being controlled the way it is, and with the trickle coming out, and with controlling the narrative the way Trump is, he's creating all of these weaponized autists, all of these Nick Shirleys, all of these folks. And one we have right now, Kevin Bass, who's doing great stuff, Cernovich points out, all Kevin Bass wanted to be was a doctor. COVID hysteria stole that from him. Now he's a menace to the corrupt. Sometimes you should let people get a job and live their lives. Too late now, though. So he's now after Reid Hoffman big time, and he was one of the guys after Bill Gates as well. So there you go. You got all these things, and when you compare the election changes, when you compare the the narrative control, when you compare all of that and you think about the midterms, of course, now Trump in his speech last night talking about the FBI raid on Fulton County, here he is discussing the election and why you're going to get the SAVE Act in the United States. Apparently no audio on this one, so I'm going to share the audio now.
And he's another one. I didn't know him, but I kept hearing these wonderful things about a guy named Brandon Beach, and he was fighting for us. By the way, did you see they raided the Fulton County place, storage house? And now the Democrats have hired a massive team of lawyers. They have the ballots. That should be no problem, right? They have the ballots. FBI came in and raided. They found plenty of stuff. And now they have the ballots. And the Democrats are fighting like hell, and I think it goes before a judge tomorrow, to not let anybody see the ballots. Why don't they want them to see the ballots after all these years? You know why they don't want? Because they cheated, that's why. They sent top lawyers down from New York to fight it. And I think it goes before a judge tomorrow sometime. They don't want them to see the ballot.
And you can see the opposite of this. So you've got all of this being trickled out, all of the anticipation, all of the narrative, people getting caught up in it. You can see the same story on the opposite end. It's Gavin Newsom. So this is what they have trying to fight this narrative, talking about voter ID and the SAVE Act. Look at how weak and pathetic this is. It's just not going to work. I'm going to share again to make sure the audio comes through. But contrast, right? Just compare the two approaches. Here you get Gavin Newsom's ploy, right? Which, as Adam Housley says, every time he shows his face in public these days, it's an SNL skit.
And of course, we're not talking about the other aspects of the SAVE Act that go well beyond ID, and it goes to which is also part of Jim Crow, the history, and that is when it comes to registration, you got to find your birth certificate. If you know where yours is, I have no clue where mine is. Or you have to passport, and 2/3 African Americans don't even have passports. So,
Passport, you stupid black person, you idiot. You can't get a passport. You don't know where they get them. You don't know where to get them. It's not going to work. It's why I continue to predict this is actually going to change the demographic voting habits. We've seen the trend already start. Trump's gone up and up and up with African-American vote. He did very well with African-American men last year. You remember Obama was crying and scolding everybody. You got to vote for the black people. Kamala's black. It didn't work. It didn't work. It was a zero. So what are they going to do this time? Have Gavin Newsom start nagging people for this? It's not going to work. It's a zero. And especially if he's coming out and doing the thing. Most of them have learned you don't say this out loud now. You don't just say black people don't know where to get ID. He came out and said it. Normally they codify it because it's obviously racist. It's the stupidest, most racist thing I've ever heard in my life. And of course, everyone's seen the viral video from 10 years ago in New York City, where that fella went around interviewing people, asking white people why they didn't like voter ID. And it was always the same. People don't know how to get on the internet. People don't know where the ID is. They don't know how to get ID. And then he went around and interviewed a bunch of black people who all said the same thing. We all know where the stuff is. We all know where the DMV is. We all know where to get a passport. And then he would say, but they say you don't know how to use the internet. And then what? Obviously insane. So that's what you can tell and why this is going the way it is. And speaking of California, it's why it is, the economics of this remain important. Adam Townsend adding here, when I split San Francisco in 2019, I also knew that many of the top CEOs and execs from some of the biggest Bay companies had quietly left also to live in their estates, ranches, farms, Hawaii, and even some sweet deal they got living on federal protected land. What I'm saying is that you're now hearing about Cali Big Shots leaving. They left a long time ago. Now that they're doing it's finally the last mile, changing their state of domicile in such a way that they can't be punished, face clawbacks, etc. So that is not a mandate to run for the presidency. And with all of that stuff in mind, with everything going on in the election, and people talking about where this is going to go, and some people not happy about Trump and he's not moving fast enough and all these things. Remember, the people complaining about Trump, and if anyone mentions Trump's poll numbers being down, they're mostly down because people want him to be more aggressive, right? That's where the trouble is, that they want him to be more aggressive. And they think he's twiddling his thumbs, and they find that to be suspicious, that it's been a bit slow. But again, I don't think it's suspicious. I think you've got to create these scenarios and lead people along. So go back to the election piece. Not only are we going to have the Bitcoin memetics of don't trust, verify really being a functional part of the operating system around the 2026 midterms, you're going to have that resonate even more. You're going to have people talking about that every day. You're going to have Trump selling don't trust, verify. You're going to have much of the administration selling don't trust, verify. The opposite argument is going to be women are too stupid to get ID. That they're going with the women now, right? And it's obviously insane. Their excuse with the women is that when they get married, their name changes, and that's going to deprive them of the vote. So it's absolutely insane. But if you wanted to know one other motivator that's there, of course, you can find it from how the Democrats are talking about the 2026 midterms. And here you've got Susan Rice, another one of these Obama administration folks, all of whom are getting caught up in the Epstein thing, here saying indeed that anyone who's worked with Trump this time, any corporation or institution who's taken a knee to Trump, it's not going to end well for them. If these corporations think the Democrats, when they come back in power, are going to play by the old rules, they've got another thing coming. There will be accountability agenda. This is not going to be an instance of forgive and forget. So the threats now, I don't think the threats are going to work out the way they thought. This is going to solve Trump and the incumbent party's major problem, which is motivation to vote. Usually when you're in power, that's the main reason why the governing party usually loses some support. It's because of motivation. You're already in control. There's no real reason to have your back up against the wall. You're not motivated trying to fight for stuff. You got control. But showing this kind of existential risk for government change right now, plus voter ID, means I continue to predict the Democrat Party will meet its end. It will not exist after the midterms. It's over. Done. Something else will happen after. You have to have two parties in America. Hopefully the Republican Party can split with confidence into two pieces, and we can have some of the intra-Republican grievances, and I think most things will fit into that going forward. You don't want one party because it's unhealthy, right? You want two parties because you don't want people saturated in politics. You don't want 10 parties because then they become too specific. It all gets lost. Two parties, contrast. You can keep a very basic agenda and policy platform that way, and it should drift to the big issues. And you want to, because entropy sets into any government, right? You don't want any one government there for too long. You want to have a choice and go back and forth. So there you go. I think that's what's happening. And I think the midterms are going to be a complete and total wash for the Democrats. I think they're done after this. It's over. Let me stop sharing. I'll be bidding you guys adieu a little early, but I want to read some of the comments from over in the Rumble chat. Hillary's fiat words are irrelevant. Exactly. Not going to work. No sound on Trump. Thanks, guys. Audio good now. Just call Obama's guy and get a new birth certificate made up. Supreme Court overturned Trump's tariffs. Yeah, the affected tariffs were the ones imposed under the Liberation Day global tariffs. He's got other options, so he's going to go back on them. I'm not too worried about the tariffs piece. Never have been. He's got other options he can use to do that. He can pass a law as well, and when he has his control over both of the houses after the midterms. He will do so, I believe. There you go. They're human from the underworld, Citadel Daniel says. Yeah. Ever seen the meme about how many species eventually evolve into crustaceans? You're saying the dancing lobsters were aliens all along? Even the Mirage has a Mirage. Bring on the dancing aliens. Indeed. Messenger 901, Donald Trump is Jesus Christ. I don't know about that. He's pretty sure he's not even going to heaven. Chatelet, brother. Chatelet, Lee J. Good morning, Count and crew. There you go. Ben Sass, hilarious. Well, we don't want to, he's dying. So, Virginia Guthrie kidnapping Bridges, Bitcoin, and Q in the narrative. Does it really? I didn't know that, barely. 45. Did not know that. I had a vivid dream about Scott Adams yesterday. He came to me and I hugged him, told him I miss him and wonder often what he would be saying now. He was happy and smiling. Wow, thanks for sharing that. That's beautiful. Thanks for sharing. Okay, folks, I got to run. I got to go to my public talk in a few minutes. What's the deal with none of it? I'll have none of it. They're not a normal territory. They're a self-governing territory. Okay, my producer is ready for me to end, so I will be doing the Canadian show. Might be 10-15 minutes late. We'll talk more about Carney and everyone with my co-hosts later on today. For now, I just want to say I'm about to play the ad, and indeed, it will be followed by the thanks for watching screen. I just want to tell you, thanks for watching. Lots of stuff coming up on Roxham TV at the top of the hour, so if you stick around or if you come back later, you'll be able to see it all. Let me see what we got on guests today so I can hype it up. I think we have some good guests coming in. Let's see. We've got Azul. She's the head of our newsroom. She's really great. Come check out her. She'll be the first guest on Hank's show. And then Walker and Hank co-host after, and a regular here in the Great Awakening gang, Brendan Gentile, will be the guest in the second hour, just before I come back on and do the Canadian show. So I've already told them, go a little late if you can, because I might be a little late myself. So there you go, everyone. You're about to see the logo and the thanks for watching. Thanks for watching.